In this lesson, we will discuss the working position of platform workers and consequently delve into the figures responsible for their social protection. In platform work in general, and despite important national differences in terms of employment status and conditions of employment, one of the main characteristics of the transformations carried out by platforms is the outsourcing of the workers and therefore the outsourcing of all the risks linked to the activities performed and realized. This common trend is indeed common despite national differences. On the one hand, platforms have to deal with specific national rules and legal contexts, especially in the field of social protection, which are different from one country to another. On the other hand, the ways in which workers are employed can be read as a result of the neoliberal process of building a workforce as self-entrepreneur, breaking away from the standard and dominant model built after the Second World War, consisting of a full-time job, a guaranteed salary covering increasingly extended periods of time off work, and with a single employer for the entire duration of the professional career. In this new configuration driven by platforms, workers own their labor force, but also the instruments and means essential to carrying out their professional tasks and activities. With the global shutdown due to the pandemic of COVID-19 during 2020, platform workers, especially those working for home delivery platforms, became suddenly visible for all, and so did their precarious employment conditions and exposure to risks. As self-entrepreneurs selling the workforce when they want and for as long as they want, according to the official discourse of the platforms, platform workers are responsible for their own social protection. In other words, they are free to cover these risks by using private forms of social protection, as their employment status gives them no or little access to social protection. The flexibility put forward is therefore deeply ambivalent. On the one hand, the possibility to choose when and whether to work makes platform work very attractive, at least at the beginning. On the other hand, in a context in which the relationship between capital and labor is inscribed in a framework in which the model of permanent and full-time employment contracts is less and less the norm, flexibility also presents itself as the absence of rights. Indeed, social protection benefits and entitlements are more and more closely linked to job performance and according to restrictive conditions of granting. While certain types of employment give access to social protection, and within employment some offer more protection than others, the perimeter of social protection as a whole tends to reduce itself, and social protection associated to underemployment or non-employment situations is more and more a question of solidarity and conditioned and conditional in compliance with institutional injunctions within the framework of the so-called active labor market and social policies. In other words, as a result of these policies, social protection tends to be less a structuring object of the labor-capital conflict and more a question of social policy and poverty reduction policies. In this sense, platform work operates as a vector of reconnection between employment, i.e., performance on the labor market, and rights and entitlements to an income and to social benefits. Welfare systems have been constructed, especially after the Second World War and until last 70s, by operating a progressive and even deeper deconnection between employment on the one hand and both rights and entitlement to financial resource on the other hand. Indeed, welfare systems gradually took over more times and life situations outside employment: pregnancy, retirement, family benefits and allowances, healthcare, and so on and so forth. From the minimum essential to the simple reproduction of the workforce, wages have become the vector of extended social protection thanks to the pooling of risks. In this evolution, the platforms operate and impose a leap back in time by making the salary only the counterpart of the development of a capital during the time necessary for this development. In this context, it is understandable that platforms do not appear and do not want to be considered as employers. Indeed, workers' rights, especially those linked to social protection, have been historically constructed in association with the identification of an employer whose figure appears during the late 19th century as a labor legal conquest. One of the main current issues at stake linked to social protection of platform workers is therefore the necessity, or not, to still conceive social protection rights in relation to the figure of an employer. Platform workers' mobilizations, at least until 2020, generally claim to be recognized as employees in order to benefit from the rights attached to that employment status, while continuing to be able to benefit from autonomy. By claiming most of the time a negotiated salary, and as far as possible predictable on the basis of hourly standards, platform workers aspire to move away from the grey zone in which they find themselves between self-entrepreneurship and salaried employment. In other words, platforms are not to be considered anymore as neutral intermediaries between clients and service providers, but as employers in all effects.